do you do when you come home from a long day at school or work? Do you get started on your long list of homework? Do you get started on your chores? Do you simply sit down on the couch and veg out in front of the TV? I personally like to relax with a nice hot cup of tea. Today I will be informing you about the fine qualities of tea. I will be discussing the history, the types of tea, and the health benefits of tea. So, I would like to talk about the history of tea. Now, contrary to popular belief, tea is actually quite interesting, especially with its history. And no, I'm not just saying that because I'm a crazy person obsessed with tea. The book of Tea and Coffee by Sarah Jane Evans explains that it all started in 3000 BC, when the royal chef accidentally dropped a tea leaf into water being boiled for the royal emperor of China. This elixir became known as the elixir of life. Later, when they figured out it wasn't really an elixir of immortality, the elixir was used for medicinal purposes and by Buddhist monks in Japan. Now, we all know tea as a brew that, the English drink and all that, right? But the English didn't actually produce tea until the 1820s in India. Now, the British had wanted to take the monopoly of tea from China for a long time because it was very profitable. And you know how the British are. I'm kidding, the British are cool. But anyways, they decided that they were going to grow tea in India because they had it as a colony. So they snuck spies into the forbidden tea regions of China so that they could steal the secrets that the Chinese jealously guarded on how to prepare the tea. However, the tea that the British produced was bitter tasting and harsh, so the Chinese would have the monopoly over tea until about 1886. Now that I've bored you with the details about the history of tea, I would like to discuss the different types of tea. This afternoon, you were served an herbal tea, but first I will be speaking about green tea. Green tea was the first type of tea that was cultivated and consumed. It came from the Far East, but was eclipsed by black tea in the West. Where because the British were growing black tea in India. I'll discuss that more in detail later. Green tea has a slightly bitter taste, but it's a lot lighter than some of the other teas, and is often used in the traditional Japanese tea ceremonies by Buddhist monks, etc. Now, with green tea, it's special because the tea leaves are rolled and dried, unlike other teas where the leaves are pressed and other things happen to it. But green tea leaves are only rolled and dried. That's why they're different. Now I will be discussing black tea. Black tea was, as I've said before, originally grown in India. A lot of the most famous black tea is called chai, which most of you have heard of, or shai if you're from the Arab world. It just depends. It's the pronunciation, doesn't matter. Basically, black tea is more full-bodied and has a lot more caffeine than green tea, herbal tea, tisanes, which I'll be discussing later. Black tea is usually drank at breakfast time because it has a lot of caffeine, so it's not a very good afternoon drink. And it's the reason why the industrialized world preferred black tea over green tea, because it had more caffeine. When you wake up in the morning, do you drink something that's going to put you to sleep or something that's going to wake you up? Something that's going to wake you up, like black tea. That's why it was drank a lot in the West. So some different types of teas are produced in different areas, including Assam. In Assam, they produce tea which is rich and strong. It is more of the breakfast teas type of tea. In Darjeeling produces a very fine type of tea. It's like the champagne of teas. You mustn't swamp it with milk. No. Would you put a bunch of random stuff in your champagne? No, it's a fine, frothy drink that you drink at fine dinner parties and things like that. Darjeeling is that for tea. It's the fine tea you drink at a Japanese tea, well, not a Japanese tea ceremony, but you drink it at a nice event, It's very expensive, hard to find on the market, and it's very good. Now, moving on to herbal teas. Now, most of you have probably heard of chamomile. Chamomile is an herbal tea. Herbal teas actually don't have tea in it usually. It doesn't have tea because it's decaffeinated. Tea has caffeine, herbal teas don't, therefore there's no tea in herbal teas. You can commonly find flowers and fruit and all sorts of bark and spices and herbs in herbal tea. Well, the herbal tea herbs. So chamomile is a really good example, and it's usually drunk before sleep. Another word for herbal tea is a tisane. So if you're trying to impress somebody with your language of tea, use the word tisane instead of herbal tea. You'll get a lot of approving nods. Now moving on to oolong. Isn't that a fun word to say? Oolong. It literally means black dragon in Chinese. Oolong. Oolong is semi-fermented, which means that the leaves are slightly withered and then fermented, instead of completely withered and then fermented. A famous type of oolong tea is called monkey-picked tea. Fun facts about that: monkey-picked tea is literally picked by, you guessed it, monkeys. But don't worry, it's really hard to find on the market. So if you're drinking oolong tea, you won't be thinking, did a monkey pick this? No. Monkey-picked tea comes from the highest mountain steeps and the tiniest crevices and is picked by very well-trained monkeys. So it's very expensive, extremely hard to find on the market, but if you do, I would recommend buying it because you might never find it again in your lifetime, and it would be the coolest tea to drink in my opinion. So, now that I've told you all about the different types of tea, although there are still many more, like white tea and various other teas, but they're not as important as the ones I discussed, so it's okay. I would like to tell you about the health benefits of the teas that I've discussed. First, we're going to talk about black tea. Now, black tea does have caffeine, and yeah, caffeine is bad for you, but really the bad caffeine is the chemical caffeine that people put in things like energy drinks. The great thing about black tea is that the caffeine is completely natural, and if it's natural, it's good for you. It also promotes cardiovascular health, which is actually kind of contrary to popular belief because a lot of people think caffeine is bad for your heart. Well, black tea might have caffeine, but it's good for your heart, so it kind of cancels it out. Cool, right? The magical wonders of tea. Herbal teas have less caffeine or no caffeine. Usually no caffeine, because it usually doesn't have tea. It also has a lot of vitamins and minerals. So if you're feeling sick, it's a really good idea to drink herbal tea. That's why you drink chamomile when you're sick, because it has a lot of vitamins which boosts your immune system. You want to know what else boosts your immune system? Green tea. That's right. You wouldn't think it, but green tea actually does boost your immune system. So when you're sick, also drink green tea. It also has antioxidants, EGCG complex. It supports the immune system, as I mentioned. It helps you maintain healthy blood levels. It helps you maintain a healthy metabolism, and it supports digestion. So really, green tea is probably the best for your health, which is why a lot of people traditionally drink it every morning and they're healthy their whole lives. I personally like to start my day off with a nice hot cup of green tea because, you know, it doesn't get me all pumped up on caffeine like black tea does, but it makes me feel really good throughout the whole day. So if you're feeling down one morning, just drink some green tea. It'll make everything better. I promise. Finally, oolong tea. Oolong tea helps you maintain a healthy metabolism and a healthy digestive system. It also helps you maintain healthy skin and teeth. So if you look in the mirror and say, "Oh, go drink some oolong," it'll. Now I've told you all about the history of tea. Wasn't it interesting? I've told you about the types of tea. There's so many. And I've told you about the innumerable health benefits of tea. So what are you going to do? Are you going to sit there and drink a Red Bull? No. Are you going to sit there and drink some water? Ha! Boring. Go get some tea. Because you want to know what? You know what? There's a tea for everybody out there. So go find the brew for you. Have a nice day. For a great audience, guys. Let's get a round of applause for all of you. Yeah!